The Irving Archives and Museum's second traveling exhibition was Beyond Bollywood, Indian Americans Shape the Nation. But COVID-19 cut short the public's opportunity to see this excellent exhibit.
We opened Beyond Bollywood on February 15th, and we closed on March 13th. So it was only up for about a month.
The Archives and Museum hosted the exhibit through its affiliation with the Smithsonian. It was organized and curated by SITES, the Smithsonian Institution Traveling Exhibition Service.
It looks at the contributions of Indian Americans to American society and sort of the deep history of Indian Americans in this country and their immigration experiences and just their overall role that they play in our larger culture.
The panel-based exhibit provided an enormous amount of information on many aspects of Indian culture.
As you would have entered the exhibit, you would have first encountered a traveling trunk, which is actually my favorite part of the exhibit because it thinks about, the fact that, what would you bring with you? If you were traveling 10,000 miles from home, likely never to return again, and it had some artifacts in it of kind of the key things that maybe an Indian family or individual would have brought with them, such as a spice box, which I learned was really essential to Indian culture. Cooking is such a key part of our traditions for all of us, but for Indians in particular. And then the exhibit would walk you through the history and background of Indians coming to America, starting in the 1790s, and largely up in the 20th century was the first mass immigrations of 1910s and 20s. And then the role of Indian Americans in American society. So struggle for civil rights, the right to vote, not something that was given automatically to Indian immigrants that came to this country, as with many other cultures, and their role in the 1960s, the civil rights movement, and looking for equality and justice for all people, and then their contributions today. So we think about the roles that you often find Indian immigrants in, such as engineering and medicine, and the fact that the H-1 visa process really emphasized bringing those particular professions to America, and that's partly what has led to a larger Indian American cultural group in this country today. And then also the cultural elements. So we think about yoga, we think about Indian cuisine, one of my favorite parts, and just the different elements of Indian culture that have become integrated and part of our larger melting pot of American culture, and how we define that.
One of the goals of the Irving Archives and Museum is to mirror the diversity of the Irving community today.
We wanted to be sure to bring in exhibits that reflected the multiculturalism that is in existence today. We felt that was really important, that people would be able to come into the museum and see themselves. That history and our background is so important, and it's important for all of us to learn and to know and to understand, but we also want to make sure that the more recent history is reflected. And so Beyond Bollywood was a perfect fit. Irving has a large Indian American population. They're socially and culturally active, and we wanted to make sure that there was a reflection of them there. And so we were really thrilled that that was one of our first temporary exhibits that we were able to host in that gallery. It's a shame we had to close it so early, but we're working on ways that we can continue the programs and projects that we started as part of that. As I told our community partners, just because there isn't a temporary exhibit specifically on Indian American culture doesn't mean we can't do programs and other events around that, so that we make sure that that community and all communities are reflected in the Irving Archives and Museum.
Beyond Bollywood set the bar high and provided a comprehensive, nuanced, and thoughtful picture of the contributions of Indian Americans. This is Kathy Whiteman reporting.